How are celebrities treated inside Scientology?
All I know is how I was treated. And, you know, my peers. I mean, that's who I hung out with. I know that it's a lot different. Actually, I do. Only because, like, this was another question for me. Like, here I was. I had Ray Midoff, who's the top auditor on the planet, the senior CS International. I had RTC technicians, whatever, people. Plus, and I'm in LA, and I had my own auditor, the CS, the senior CS, and then they would all go over my folder. Then they'd send it to Richard Reese at Flag, who's the senior CS of Flag, and he'd go over the floor, and they would, you know how long it took me to get a fucking CS'd? Like, I'd do a thing, and I'd make an origination like, you know, I'm not sure I like this. My next session would be about a month later. Because they couldn't fucking handle, because there were so many vias on the comm line. So how was I handled? I was handled with the best attention ever. And I said, you know something? If this is the best of the best, that's what I was saying to him at the end. I said, how the fuck, and that's another thing I said about Clear the Planet. If you are the best motherfuckers in the world and you admitted you fucked the shit out of me, what happens to poor schmo at Orange County Org who you're saying, you know, just, because when you first saying, well, you just need ethics. Or some fucking thing. He's still stuck in some ethics cycle going, and they're fucking, it's because they fucked him up and they said, no, you need more set checking. And he can't afford it. Or some fucking thing. And it's not even the right fucking thing. These guys don't know what they're doing. They're fucking hoping. You know what I mean? They're hoping. And the fucking crime of the bitch is they say, aha, we're going to work this out, and I'm going to put in a little oregano, and the other guy says too much salt, and here's your folder. And of course, we've got it CS'd and ready to go, and I'd be like, this fucking sucks. It's a wrong fucking item. And then your needle's floating. I'd like to indicate it is the wrong item, and it'd go right back to the motherfuckers for another month. And meanwhile, I've already bought $100,000 worth of auditing, and it's more going through this thing. And then it's like just talking about some stupid fucking overts to start because I haven't had a session. Well, I masturbated and I mean, you're coming up with, who the fuck cares? I said, you know what I mean? I got nothing. It's not like I'm fucking killing people or beating my children or something. You know what I do? You know, internet porn and I don't know. You know, I got mad at work and, you know, you got nothing to fucking say. And this is it. And that'll fucking eat the whole cocksucker. It's just unbelievable.
Celebrities are used heavily for recruiting.
Yeah.
And they recruit young actors coming to town. I see every weekend in Backstage West, now it's up to 5 or 6 ads for different workshops they do. Are you familiar with
Yeah.
at all?
Yeah, I gave one.
At all about it?
Yeah, they got me to do one once. Yeah, people got interested and they signed up for courses. Yeah, and they use people to do that. I suppose they're targeting actors. That's what I've understood. It's good public relations for them, I suppose. Or if somebody hits big, it's thanks to Scientology.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who do them, and at first they were very reticent to do some of the things, say some of the things that they're pressured to do. In other words, you know, Scientology, and say that Scientology, and that you use the ethics conditions all the time, you know, in your career and all these kind of things. But after they, yeah, but then after they've done a couple of them, they even start to believe it. It's very hard. You have to look. I mean, you know, these are decent, good people, and they. It's like, I don't want to say so many alarming things, but I mean, it's, you know, how do people get involved in these destructive relationships just between two people? You know, there's a lot of people that get knocked around and come back. And, you know, I doubt the person knocked them around on the first date. And it's, you know, it's sad. And just looking at that those celebrities. You sell a little piece of your soul when you tell that lie, but you've got it all justified that, you know, well, it's good people and it's for the church and, you know, I'm helping the group and and you got it thing. But I'm telling you, you know that you're full of it a little bit. And you know that if you really look at it, it's okay. And like in any other universe, you know, if that came up in session, it would be an overt. But not there. Because you're doing it, because they've got the whole thing, I mean, this whole hard sell and all this thing. I mean, and what they, you know, do to recruit, shit, actors is one thing. What about the little children they get into the Sea Organization? Billionaire contracts, you know?
Yeah, what's your reaction to the Sea Org and the way that Sea Org members are treated as opposed to the celebrity clientele? Are you aware of some of the things that happen to Sea Org members?
Well, I mean, I've heard things, and and they seem quite plausible. I have never seen anybody been abused. I've seen people kind of screamed at. But I've never seen that kind of abuse. To me, I mean, it's, let's say, you know, you hear my story and I got out and I've got some sad tales and maybe I got ripped off for a good chunk of money and this, that, and the other thing. If you look at that as compared to somebody who joins the Sea Org, it's not even comparable. Can you imagine what it would be like to have a person at your beck and call and complete disposal, your slave, who not only was a slave by force, but by you know, you've got them by the mind, not the balls. You got them by the mind. So they're in love with you, devoted to you, to do whatever you want for their entire lifetime. Okay? And you can just get them, so they're working, let's say, I mean, just a person working 100 hours probably is what the average Sea Org person works a week. I'd say about 80 to 100 hours a week. What's the minimum wage on that is, you know, I mean, it's not even minimum wage shit. I mean, they build the buildings. They do everything. High-tech stuff. I mean, is it worth at least $75,000 a year? So that's it. And then you get that for 50 years, 40 years, because they get them when they're teenagers, you know? And they, you know, they've also hired a dentist who takes care of their teeth. They've also hired you know, all these kind of things. It's part of their organization. I mean, what is that? That's just millions and millions of dollars worth of free labor. I mean, it's not only that, plus your whole life. And what do they get in exchange? They believe that they're saving this sector of the galaxy. And that's enough for them. And they're the few people who have the ethical fortitude to make that kind of a commitment.
What's your reaction to the RPF?
Those are the rules of the game. But I mean, to me, what it is more of a way to control. You know, people end up there if they're, I would think, to some degree, they feel getting out of control. And so what do? Is you put more control over them until you got them back in control. And whether that's physical abuse or mental abuse or both, it's what it is.
When you're in, did you know the ins and outs of RPF, where families would be split up and people couldn't communicate for months or even years?
No, they don't talk about that much. I mean, as I got older, I mean, when I was in a little bit longer and spent more time, you know, at the upper organizations like Gold, I would hear about things like that and find out. But they try to keep that stuff away from everybody, especially celebrities, because it indicates, you know, the company line is that the Sea Org is made up of OTs. It's a group of OTs Okay? So for these people to fail, it's meaning that OTs are failing. And it's kind of like a one-shot clear joining the C organization, and you have the EPF, which is the precursor, where you get ready. And that is supposed to, when you're finally posted in the Sea Org, the end phenomenon of the EPF, which is called the Estates Project Force, which is basically where you run around and do a lot of physical labor and take a couple of courses. The end phenomenon of that is supposed to be an OT. And which is interesting to me. I've many times blown my stack when I had to get in touch with somebody at Flag. I had to call the president, and of course they've got a new person answering the telephone at Flag. And of course Scientology touts itself as the cutting edge in communication, whereas they have somebody answering the fucking phone who does not speak English. However, they are an OT. They happen to be an OT from Poland who is now 14 years old and is now the main receptionist for an international fucking hotel. And you call and you say, what the fuck is wrong with this person? Well, they're posted and they should be. It's you got to get that job done. And if their stats are down, I'm sure they're back on the RPF if they hadn't learned to speak English quick enough. And that's not an exaggeration. Insanity.
So you didn't know that much about what's going on in the RPF, things like that?
No, I learned some things online, but...
Yeah. How are you as public kept away from the untheta that's going on in the real world? I mean, if there's, some really negative story about Scientology in the paper or on TV, are you aware of that?
It's a funny thing. Like, I remember, my wife had seen Ted Koppel interview David Miscavige, and she thought that he kind of fucked up, certainly wasn't very OT. And she talked to Susan Watson, who was the president of CC, said, that's, and CC, and Susan was like, it's almost like gaslighting somebody, that expression? Yeah, which is, kind of make him seem like are you crazy? Oh, well, he was just doing a tone scale drill, because, Ted Scalpel. And, just kind of to just not is the thing. I think it's called dead agenting. And it was an interesting thing. I mean, I had a similar experience. Well, just seeing Tom Cruise, acting a little bit in a way that, could distress a lot of people. And they make it into well, this is the greatest. Yeah, no, this is good. People just can't handle his level of enthusiasm, and it's a little, okay. So that's the company line, and you go, okay,
Even now, when with the release of the Tom Cruise tape and global attention to this, they're trying to spin it as a positive that all these people are coming to our site and learning about Scientology and joining.
Right.
Whereas the rest of the world is thinking, Tom Cruise is nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, though. In their own little world, it makes sense. The funny thing is, that is a Scientologist talking to Scientologists. I mean, that's Tom Cruise, who's sitting there. I've done these kind of videos, being interviewed, knowing that his audience is people in the audience of an event that's going to be made up completely of Scientologists, and his job is to get some fire under their asses so they can jump out and start behaving more like him. And that's basically what it is. So that is in their universe. You could show that I mean, I think that's an unedited tape, but that's basically him. I mean, I've been around the guy. I twinned on him in some courses. Shit, I was getting auditing from Marty Rathbun. We were on turnabout for a month and a half. It was like Tom would go in, then I'd go in. Tom would go in, I'd go in. So, I mean, I spent a little bit of time with him. And that's him. He's a very fucking focused guy. And I mean, that's what I see. I mean, this guy is not a namby-pamby panty waist. He's a totally dedicated person I can't call him a friend or know him even, but I can tell you that that's who he is. So if it seems crazy, that's interesting. That seems like the ideal to most Scientologists. And that's an interesting comment. That's what it is. Because they showed that as a, come on, babies, get off your asses. Don't you want to be like Tom? And it's interesting that the rest of the world, who are not caught up in that Truman Show, they see it as, well, what's wrong with this guy? It's crazy.
Very much to an outsider, as though your personality is stripped away and it's replaced, your reality rather, stripped away and it's replaced with Scientology's reality. That's
what I saw. That's what I've perceived. And the other dangerous thing, I mean, I watched a little of that Tom Cruise interview, and I'd seen it before then. You know, I went to that event. You know, that was an IAS event from where he won the Freedom Medal. The fact that, you know, there's some part in there where he says, you know, as a Scientologist, you just can't let that you can't pass that accident because you know you're the only person who can do something about it. And he does know that. You know? And to me, that's part of what I'm finding is destructive in terms of a religion that pulls people apart. You know, whereas it seems like, well, no, he's really helping people. So you could say that. But he's also putting himself above it. He's a homo novus. He's somewhat condescending. He knows he's going to heaven. Do you understand? You know, and I find that it's very worrisome. It really is. It's not. I don't think it bodes well for the planetary community when you have people sectifying into these groups that are the only way out. It starts to look crazy. Yeah. That's, I think, where war comes from.
You mentioned having done some of those videos like Cruise. You've done a lot of Scientology.
Oh shit, man! Let me tell you something. Like the main recruiting film for the Sea Organization, I spent well over a year doing that with Up at Gold with David Miscavige, and he and I and one other guy on the final day, because we had to finish it for Sea Org Day. So if you ever get recruited to join the Sea Org, that'll be me talking, unless they hear this. Maybe they'll take me off, but we live in a world gone mad, where pain and strife create war and human suffering, a world rife with drugs. Yeah, it starts like that. It's very serious. And it's all about the Sea Organization, how it was formed, and blah, blah, blah. So apparently it's working. That's what I've heard, they told me. But their stats never go down. Yeah, then I did, the last thing I did before I left was they had this, I don't know what the hell they were calling it, but it was this big public push. They were going to put these videos in every org, so when new public walk in, they can learn what is CCR, what is the volunteer ministers, what is there's like, I must have done 10 or 12 of them, of these things. And that's my voice too. Shit. Then, of course, you know, the technology of Scientology is learning how to clear people and bring them to higher states of spiritual freedom. And that takes a lot of learning. You have to go to course. And part of the course is technical films where they tell a story. They're all written by L. Ron Hubbard, and some were even directed by him. But I'm in, Jesus, shit, I don't know. Plenty of them.
So you think they'll have to purge you now?
I don't know if they'll purge me. You know, there was a girl who had left and they kept her, I mean, they redid the film finally. There's some of them that it'll take a while to redo. I mean, they take us so forever to make a film anyway. I mean, it's, shit, I did a little half-hour film for them. It took months. It took months.